guys, this is Ezra, and I am going to kind of do a bit of a voiceover while we go over the footage of me that I recorded doing my most recent photo. So right now, I'm kind of just setting up the scene. I'm going to start changing the wind lights around here for a minute. And right now what I'm doing is actually saving my current wind light because I do use this one frequently in my ad pics and I don't want to lose it, so I'm just saving a copy of it to my inventory. And now I'm just going to go through and try to find a wind light. So I'm going to time lapse this one. So at this point I have settled on a wind light and it kind of looks pretty cool, but I feel like it's a little bit dark. So as you can see, I'm already wearing a face lamp on my face because there's kind of a whitish light highlighting my face. You can see a bit of a red on my arms. So I'm going to come in here and I think at first I tried to adjust the red one, decided I didn't like it, and I believe I ended up detaching this one because I just decided to go with something different. I'm going to try to highlight my face so that it's got kind of like a soft lighting so that you can see the features of my face, because I am also vlogging the nosebleed there, so trying to make sure that it is visible because it is a dark photo. And I'm going to add a different one. And this lamp I'm going to bring down to kind of show some light on the dress because I am vlogging this gorgeous dress from the Song Angel. And so I wanted to make sure that it was visible. So here I realized that I kept trying to increase the intensity and it was already at max. So I decided to add some more distance to the radius, get it into position. And yeah, I think I ended up using this. So one thing to note here is that I always select 8K in Black Dragon settings. Doesn't matter what I'm doing, it's always 8K. Typically, if I want to crop it, I will crop it in Photoshop. And the reason for that is that you can still kind of get the depth of field from the viewer, which the higher resolution you have, the less the depth of field is going to be what you see on the screen. Now you can save a photo at 12K with depth of field from Black Dragon, but your depth of field is going to be looking so ridiculous on your screen just for it to look correct in the preview. So I would definitely just recommend using 6K or 8K. I prefer 8K. And yeah, it looks like I turned it 90 degrees because I wanted to do more of a full body or even a 3/4 body shot. And here you'll see me adjusting to try to fit myself into the frame. So now that I've saved my first version of the photo, I'm going to come in and adjust the colors because as much as I really like the purple, I kind of want to see if I can find something that would look a bit more natural or even, I don't know, just more interesting. So I do like the purple, but I want to try to achieve something, that looks a bit more like that. So I've added a different color to the sun because that's what this specific wind light required. Was just an adjustment to the sun, and then I added a bit of a bluish, dark blue, and I ended up really liking this one, to be honest. So now that I've got this into Photoshop, I've got all 3 photos that I saved. I immediately rotated it so that it is upright because I know a lot of people in this house seem to have a big issue with sideways photos. They are still nice to take that way, but yeah. So right now I am spending quite a bit of time just layering, trying to bring out the purple where I want it, and just mess around, try to see if I can combine the layers in an interesting way. I think I end up completely reorganizing these in the end, but I believe it ended up looking pretty good. I know this is in super speed right now, but when I get to sections where it's a little more technical, I will slow down a bit and try to explain a bit as to what I am doing. But for now, it looks like you can just watch the time lapse. And right now I am pulling out the pen tool. So the pen tool is an excellent way to draw in strands of hair, especially as the thumbnail said, I did not use a drawing tablet for this photo. This is 100% done with a mouse. So right now what I am doing is I found a hair brush that I have in Photoshop. I have quite a few. You can get a lot of them for free on DeviantArt. But right now I am basically drawing 2 points onto my head, and then I put a point in the middle, and then I hold down Control and click on that point in the middle to kind of adjust where I want it to go. and then you right click and hit stroke path, and as long as you have simulate pressure checked, it will simulate like a pen stroke as if you had an actual tablet. So this is pretty much what I did. I did a lot of layering. I tried to think about how the hair is sitting on my head and how it would come loose if it was in this bun. So I think you guys kind of get the gist of what I am doing here right now. So I am going to speed this up for a bit, and I will be back when there's more to talk about. So one thing I want to mention about hair specifically is you see that brush where I've got a bunch of little wispy strands? You want to combine soft chunks of hair with the wispy strands. You don't want to just do a bunch of wispy strands because it'll take you hours to do it. So if you can find a brush that has, a clump of wispy strands on it, where they're, more defined and separated, it would definitely be helpful because hair isn't just singular strands. Like when you look at it in a real life photo, you don't see the individual strands. You kind of see the shape and how the light reflects off of it. And I try to keep that in mind when working with hair in SL. I don't typically completely repaint the hair. I just tend to enhance it. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. So as for what I'm doing right now is one of my cheap ways to kind of fix an alpha hair glitch if you're using the depth of field in Black Dragon, and that is to make a duplicate layer of everything. Don't ever work on your original because that's destructive. So make a duplicate, and then I use the blur, a combination of the blur and the smudge tools in Photoshop. And then what I did is I added a black mask and I painted, sort of painted because it was with a mouse. I kind of filled in the space where I wanted the blur to be, over the alpha bit. And I decided that was really the only section on this photo that was a pain. Typically, I try to take a photo where I detach my hair, but I think I forgot to do it on this one because I was in a bit of a rush. So right now what I am attempting to do is backlighting hair, which is something you guys have seen me do quite a few times in my photos, but I've never actually explained it. So typically what I try to do is I use like a bright color, typically close to a white. I try to use the color that is in the scene behind me. So if it's like a bright red, I'll try to grab a red. And you want to play with the blending modes. And you want something that is visible only when it's away from the hair. And I honestly don't know how to do this on hair color that isn't black because my avatar pretty much always has black hair. So I'm not 100% sure how this technique would work, but if you have dark hair in SL, this technique definitely helps adding, some of the translucent hair strands that people typically have when there's a light from behind them. And again, this is something that you should definitely do some research, study how real life photography looks with backlit hair, where the light source is behind the person. Take a look at how their hair is. There's typically a lot of little itty bitty strands that they kind of look like they're glowing. So that's what I'm trying to emulate here. So in this little bit, I am using a stamp tool that I have. It was another brush that I think I picked up off of DeviantArt. And I just kind of give it a bit more wispy strands. I really like using this tool because it kind of helps, especially if you're not using a graphics tablet. It really helps to get more natural looking strands instead of just like a simple curve over and over again like I usually have by using the pen tool. So by using this stamp, I don't know, I just really like how it looks, and I'll rotate the canvas around, and if you don't know how to do that, you just hit R and you just click and drag, and there is a reset button. But yeah, I'm a queen of hotkeys. I'm gonna have to record a video with like a screencast or a keycast software or something while I'm doing all of this. But yeah, basically I'm just stamping little wisps and just making them look like they're little flyaways, and that's really all it is. And at this point, I'm using the magnetic lasso tool to kind of make a selection because I like to add a bit of a shadow around clothing items just to give it a little bit more depth. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I always add a multiply layer, and I sample a color from the body, from around the body, and I just kind of add a bit of a big round soft brush and just add a little bit of shading next to it. So at this point, I am doing a technique that I've done for a very long time, and there is another famous SL photographer, YouTuber, who talked about this tutorial where I think she used the pen tool in hers. I kind of, it depends on my mood. Some days I use a pen tool, some days I use magnetic lasso. It depends on how lazy I'm being that day. But basically all you do is you take a really big brush after making a selection and you just darken up right underneath the chin. I don't know why, I've always loved the way that looks, so it's just been something that I've routinely done in my photos ever since. And honestly, I use this technique in a lot of areas on my photos. So I think in my last video, there was a section where I was working on fingers and I was kind of applying the same type of technique. Like right now, you'll see me start to do something similar on the arm, where I'm just adding a bit of a shadow between the forearm and the upper arm. And so this technique can be applied really anywhere on the body that you want to use it. And it just gives a bit more depth, because I've noticed that in Black Dragon, as good as it is with the SSAO and the ambient occlusion and all of that, it looks great, but it also isn't 100% accurate. So I like to go in by hand, even if it's quickly in a speed edit, and just do it that way, because you can control the way that it looks. So one technique that you're about to see me do is adjusting curves layer. And this is like, the best way I can describe it is a ghetto dodge and burn, because honestly, this was something that I saw on a real life photography Photoshop tutorial channel, and it's changed my life for SL completely. So what you do is you make a curves layer, you darken it a little bit. You're going to do one for dark shadows, one for highlights. And you just kind of really, really arbitrarily paint in some shadows or paint in some, highlights or whatever you're doing. At the moment, I'm doing shadows. So like I'm really roughly painting in some shadows. And the really cool thing about doing this technique is that once you've, kind of gotten the rough idea of where you want these shadows or highlights to go, all you have to do is click on the mask, and then you can get this option to just feather it. And you can see me here. You just kind of drag it up until it looks good. And then, the photography video that I saw recommended adjusting the fill and the opacity and some of the blending, and it was just, I can't be asked to do that. I'm not gonna lie. This was supposed to be a quick, lazy edit, so I've learned to apply it in my own way. And now you're going to see me do the highlights in the same technique. And I do a little bit on my face. I do a little bit in areas where, you would know that light would hit or highlight. I noticed that I had a light coming from behind me and kind of highlighting the bottom of the dress. So right now I am just going over that and brightening up that to give it kind of a more interesting dynamic, and obviously feathering it. And that's pretty much what I end up doing here for a bit. So right now you guys are going to see me starting to add glitter on my fingers. It took me a while to get the brush that I wanted, but I like to use little glitter highlights, and a friend of mine actually showed me how to do this. and I've been addicted to it ever since. I do love materials in SL, but sometimes your scene just doesn't capture them well, so I like to kind of put in a bit of glitter to kind of give them a faux materials effect. And because this is a speed edit, I didn't spend a lot of time fixing my eyelashes, so they are a bit chunky. I probably should have fixed them, but typically that is something that I usually do when I'm using my tablet, and I was just not feeling using a tablet, so it is still possible to get nice photos just using a mouse. And this is the section where I was talking about the solid color. I set it to overlay, and I was just adding a bit more purple in some of the other places. And I, again, used that feather technique, and then I had to dunk that layer into its own folder so that I could actually use an additional mask to kind of cut out the areas that I wanted to isolate. So right now I'm kind of creating a somewhat faux depth of field using the iris blur. This is a new technique to me. This is the first time I've tried using it. I saw again, another real life photography tutorial talking about adding blur to photos, and I wanted to give it a try. I'm not 100% sure how to use this tool yet. It is not something that I really spent a lot of time working in my real life photography. So I will have to do another video about that once I figure out how to do iris blur. But right now I'm using a program called Photoscape X. I typically only use this one for extra lighting effects, lens flare, and the bokeh lighting, and some filters. I do minor adjustments in here, and this is actually how I do the sparkles. So right now I'm just kind of adjusting the colors because I think they were a bit too saturated for my liking, and normally my photos are pretty saturated. So this is what I was referring to earlier when I mentioned that I do sparkles. And if you guys had seen my neon shape tutorial, I kind of touched on it saying that I would do a video about the sparkles. I can do a video specific to the sparkles, but this is roughly how I do them. It's just the scatter brush in Photoscape, and I usually set the blend mode to screen, and I usually pick a color that's like similar to the background, and I just kind of paint around. And it will scatter, obviously, because it's the name of the tool. It will scatter the little dots around in an interesting way, and it kind of just gives it like this dusty, magical effect. I don't know, I've always kind of liked it. I like this effect, and it's one of my favorite parts of this program. This is scatter brush. So right now I'm doing my favorite little token zoom blur. I always put the zoom blur around my avatar, and what's really nice about Photoscape is that you can paint in a mask of where you want the effect to impact your photo. So I'm just painting around my avatar. It looks a bit silly now, but once I turn it down, it starts to look better. And here I'm going in for some more bokeh lights. I think I was trying to kind of amplify more of the sparkles without painting in more sparkles, because sometimes the sparkles are a bit unpredictable. There's that dot on my ear, which I honestly didn't notice until now. Now that's going to drive me crazy, because I'm sure that's probably in the end result. I'm going to sharpen the photo a little bit. I'm going to add in some noise, because I like my photos to have a bit of noise. And then I'm going to do chromatic aberration. I used to use the mask tools on this, but now I typically just set it to red cyan, about -15 to -10. And that's it. So here's a little bit of a before and after. Really hope that you guys like this video. If you want to see more of these, please like, subscribe, and comment below. And let me know what you guys want me to cover. If there's any specific technique that I have that you see in my photos that you want me to talk about, just leave a comment below, and I will do my best to try to make a video covering it. Alright guys, thank you.